It isn't enough for Russian President Vladimir Putin that his Ukraine invasion has caused the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians and his own soldiers. He wants more. Putin wants to take out some of the top players in Ukraine via assassination, but he's failing. The latest killer Putin sent to Ukraine has been caught in a shocking sting operation and he's now languishing in prison. It's the latest assassination failure in several that Russia's leader has attempted in Ukraine, and it shows us that Putin has no interest in peace. He isn't the only one who can play the assassination game in the war that he started. On April 8, Al Jazeera reported that Ukraine had just arrested a man accused of a litany of crimes. Attempted assassinations were only part of the man's rap sheet, as he's also accused of blowing up several buildings in Ukraine, all under orders from Putin. The suspect is also accused of outright murdering at least one Ukrainian soldier, along with planning out assassination attempts on several Ukrainian officials. This man's name isn't known, but we do know that he has a long career of subterfuge and sabotage inside Ukraine. Reports about his age vary. Al Jazeera says that the arrested assassin is a 56-year-old operating out of the Crimean Peninsula. However, United 24 says the assassin is actually 55 and that he comes from Yevpatoria. Pravda confirms the location in its report, though it also notes that the assassin moved to the Belgorod region of Russia in 2015. That region is important as it lies near the border Russia shares with Ukraine and gave the would-be assassin easy access to the country where most of his targets live. Pravda also provides a brief history of the assassin's exploits. It reveals that a Ukrainian investigation found that the man, who was born in Ukraine, embraced pro-Russian ideology, seemingly around the time that Putin launched his first campaign of aggression against Ukraine in 2014. That led to him being recruited by Russian intelligence, which saw a clear opportunity to use his status as a Ukrainian citizen to its advantage. The man signed a cooperation agreement with the Russian Federal Security Service, or FSB, and has been carrying out subversive operations on Ukrainian territory ever since. One of those operations took place in March 2024. Arriving in Kharkiv in February, the man was instructed by his handlers to kill a Ukrainian soldier. He executed that task on March 5, 2024, when he snuck up on a soldier near a residential building in Kharkiv, putting a bullet in his bag. The soldier died on the spot, says Pravda, and the assassin had proven his value. No details about that soldier had been provided, leading to the assumption that he wasn't an important military target. However, that wouldn't matter to Russia, as this assassination was likely a test. Russia wanted to know if its new charge was happy killing one of his countrymen. He proved that he was, and that led to Russia giving him the green light to act on his own initiative as long as his actions were in Russia's best interests. With this freedom, the assassin switched his focus to several key sites located in Kharkiv. Just a few weeks after killing the Ukrainian soldier, the assassin threw an M67 fragmentation grenade at the Shevchenkivsky District Administration building in Kharkiv. That American-made grenade was an interesting choice, demonstrating that the assassin didn't limit himself to Russian weapons. Used by the United States since 1968, the M67 is far from being the most powerful weapon in the world, and it only cost the US around $45 per unit to make. The now captured assassin put it to good use. Though his grenade didn't kill anybody, it caused about $61,200 in damages to the Shevchenkivsky District Administration building. Given the assassin used such a cheap grenade, that damage represents a 1,360 times return on investment. And more explosive sabotage attempts followed. Following his successful attacks in Kharkiv, the assassin turned his attention to the city's medical and social assessment board offices. He planted an explosive device at the doors of the building, destroying them without causing any casualties. One could consider this a failed assignment, as the assassin did little damage to the building and had to flee the scene quickly. Still, he was gaining plenty of experience in using explosives, and in October 2024, Russia again attempted to put that experience to good use. It tasked its assassin with killing the head of the Dahachi city military administration, Aruacheslav Zadorenko. This was the assassin's biggest target yet, and he put a lot of work into making sure he got the job done. Pravda says Ukraine believes the assassin monitored the military head's routines and travel routes, allowing him to determine when the official would stop in one place long enough for him to plant a bomb. By October 2024, he was confident enough to build a radio-controlled explosive device. He traveled to Destabilize, planted his bomb on the underside of the official's car, and waited. All he'd have to do was trigger the explosive once the official got in the car. But the assassination attempt failed. The military head spotted the explosive device before it could be detonated and contacted local law enforcement. And again, the assassin had failed and was forced to escape. In spite of the agent's failure to kill the military official in Destabilize, he was once again tasked with taking out a high-ranking Ukrainian. This time, Putin offered the agent $50,000 to take out the leader of the Kharkiv Oblast military administration. The assassin reportedly made plans to carry out the killing, but that's as far as he got. Russia's agent soon discovered that he was being tracked by Ukrainian law enforcement, leading him to suspend his plans until the heat died down. Even so, he somehow managed to set fire to a pair of military vehicles in Kharkiv while he was on the run. But the net was tightening. In late October 2024, the agent attempted to escape law enforcement. He boarded a train in an attempt to leave Kharkiv, but it was to no avail. Law enforcement had been tracking him and knew exactly where he was. The man, who still hasn't been named, was arrested on the train and has been in pre-trial detention with no possibility of bail ever since. As of April 8, the Russian agent has been formally charged under several articles of the Ukrainian Criminal Code. When he steps into court, he'll have to answer to charges ranging from treason and sabotage to terrorism, the illegal possession of weapons, and premeditated, though ultimately failed in several cases, murder for hire. He'll likely be convicted. If he is, he'll end up spending the rest of his life in a Ukrainian jail, potentially surrounded by countrymen who don't agree with the anti-Ukraine stance he's taken. The agent's story highlights a grim aspect of the Ukraine war that often goes underreported. As Putin sends his soldiers into the meat grinder, which has caused him to lose over 927,000 soldiers to death, injury or capture already, he's also trying to kill Ukrainians through more covert means. And that's the terrifying thing for Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and his officials. This agent may be among the most notorious assassins operating in Ukraine, but he's far from the only one. Russia has attempted plenty of other assassinations, some successfully and others less so, since Putin launched his invasion in February 2022. Several of those attempts have targeted Zelensky himself. In May 2023, Al Jazeera reported that the Secret Service of Ukraine, or SBU, had detained a woman who was believed to have aided in the development of a Russian plot to kill Zelensky. That assassination attempt would have taken place during the president's visit to the region of Mykolaiv, which was recovering from the devastating effects of a flood at the time. The SBU alleged that the woman was working alongside Russia to plan a massive airstrike on the Mykolaiv region during Zelensky's visit. Her role was to gather as much intelligence about the region as she could, with a specific focus on any electronic warfare measures Ukraine had in place to prevent such a strike. She also gathered information about several warehouses filled with ammunition that could be secondary targets for the Russian bombers. However, the SBU caught on to what the woman was attempting early. It monitored her for several weeks to learn more about her assignments and potentially her handlers inside Ukraine. Once the SBU had what it needed, it caught the would-be assassin red-handed as she attempted to pass the information she gathered to the FSB. Among those documents were photographs of potential targets, including the ammunition warehouses. She faces up to 12 years in prison for the unlawful dissemination of information about weapons and troop movements, though no updates on her sentencing have been reported. As for Zelensky, he learned of the attack when the SBU discovered it and obviously escaped unscathed. That didn't stop Putin though. Fast forward to May 2024, and Russia's leader was again attempting to use his network of assassins to take Ukraine's president out. This time, the SBU discovered an entire group of Russian agents, all acting underneath Russia's FSB, who had been tasked with killing Zelensky and several other prominent Ukrainian military and political officials. Those agents included a pair of colonels in the State Guard of Ukraine, demonstrating that Putin's influence inside Ukraine extends to some very dangerous places. Ukraine's state guard exists to protect top officials, up to and including the president. Having two men on the inside of that group meant that Putin had operatives with in-depth knowledge of Zelensky's security detail. The SBU claimed that the pair were tasked with finding somebody within Zelensky's presidential guard who would be willing to flip. That person would then be tasked with taking Zelensky hostage and killing him, sending Ukraine into chaos at a crucial point during the war. The plan failed, and this failure would have really stung Putin, as SBU leader Vasyl Maliuk explained. The terrorist attack, which was supposed to be a gift to Putin for the inauguration, was indeed a failure of the Russian special services, Maliuk said in the wake of the arrests. At the time, Russia's leader was celebrating his 5th inauguration as president. He wanted Zelensky's head on a platter, but the FSB failed to deliver. Still, Putin wouldn't stop with his assassination attempts and terrorist strikes against Ukraine. In February 2025, Maliuk spoke at the Ukraine Year 2025 forum, where he revealed that the SBU had foiled a Russian plot to conduct a terrorist attack on a construction hypermarket in Kyiv. That attack was intended to cause mass casualties, with several high-ranking Ukrainian officials being among the Russian targets. Maliuk even provided details. The attack was planned to occur at 6 p.m, peak hours for the hypermarket, and would have involved explosive devices being detonated closer to flammable materials. The idea was simple: kill as many as possible with the explosions while causing massive fires that would kill dozens more. Again, Russia failed. The SBU foiled the plot, though it's unknown if it made any arrests as a result. Unfortunately for Ukraine, not every one of Putin's assassination attempts fails. Just 4 days before Al Jazeera reported on the arrest of the agent operating in Kharkiv, the Kyiv Independent revealed that a car bomb in Dnipro had claimed the life of a city official, along with injuring that official's wife. The victim of the assassination was Yuri Fedko, who led the left bank administration of the Dnipro City Council. The car bombing occurred at 7:40 a.m. local time, with Fedko initially surviving the attempt and being transported to the hospital before he ultimately passed away. The attack is currently being investigated by the SBU. However, there's practically no doubt about who was behind it. What we see from the agent being arrested in Kharkiv and the many assassination attempts Russia made in the months and years prior is that this is a clear pattern for Putin. He has operatives inside Ukraine, as well as handlers operating in the country who deliver instructions to those assassins. In some cases, he even lets his agents roam around causing whatever damage they can, as was the case with the assassin in Kharkiv. Ukraine has to be on constant alert. But Putin also has to face up to an uncomfortable truth. Even though he may be attempting to use assassins to take out some of Ukraine's most important officials, that's a game that can go two ways. Ukraine is just as capable of using the same tactics to take out prominent Russians. And based on several recent reports, it's far more adept at using assassins than Russia. In December 2023, Radio Free Europe published a report claiming that Ukraine has just an extensive network of assassins operating in Russia as Putin has in Ukraine. It detailed several incidents, some of which targeted Russian operatives on Ukrainian soil, while others took out Russians inside their own territory. Ilya Kuva was one of the victims of a Ukrainian assassination. Kuva has an interesting story. He entered Ukrainian politics in 2013, first successfully running for the country's parliament and then joining up with the Ukrainian nationalist group Right Sector to support Dmytro Myrtash in his unsuccessful campaign for the Ukrainian presidency. By all accounts, Kuva was a pro-Ukraine as they came. He joined a Ukrainian militia to fight against pro-Russian separatists when Putin launched his 2014 campaign against Ukraine. His bravery in battle led to him becoming a top advisor to Ukraine's interior minister of the time, through which he called for Russian speakers to be removed from his country. So what changed? No one knows for sure, but by 2020, Kuva had evolved from being a Ukrainian nationalist to becoming a member of a political party that was distinctly pro-Russian. When Putin launched his invasion in February 2022, Kuva's voice was among the loudest, calling for Ukraine to surrender to Russia. Those comments led to him being kicked out of Ukraine's parliament, after which he fled to Russia and started spouting his pro-Putin rhetoric on Russian state television. Ukraine convicted Kuva of high treason in November 2023, sentencing him to 14 years in prison. But there was a problem. Kuvva was still in Moscow, so Ukraine decided that it needed to take him out. On the evening of December 6, Kuvva was taking a stroll through a park in a suburb of southwest Moscow. There, Kuvva was confronted by a man who shot him several times and died on the spot. Ukraine didn't take credit for the assassination, though it also didn't deny its involvement. A spokesman for the country's military even said, "The same will befall other traitors of Ukraine and accomplices of Putin's regime. Justice takes different forms." In other words, Putin may be attempting to assassinate some of Ukraine's most important people. But Ukraine is succeeding in assassinating key Russian players. A year later, Ukraine took out somebody it considered an enemy of the state. December 17, 2024 saw Ukrainian operatives install an explosive device into an electric scooter parked near the home of Lieutenant General Igor Lyryolov. The man was a high-priority target. He was the commander of the Russian military's nuclear, biological and chemical forces, and according to the SBU, a war criminal who had given orders to use banned chemical weapons against Ukraine's military. The scooter bomb killed him instantly, along with taking out one of his aides. So, Ukraine's hands are far from clean when it comes to assassination attempts. But while Russian agents are being caught in dramatic sting operations, it seems like Ukraine's operatives can work inside Russia without anybody being any the wiser until they strike. Assassination, it seems, is just one more area of the war where Ukraine has the advantage. So why exactly are Russia and Ukraine using assassination tactics so extensively? One answer is that assassinations allow both sides to target key people that they would never otherwise be able to hit. Take Kuvva and Lyryolov as examples. Neither of those men, despite or perhaps because of their importance to Putin, would ever find their way onto the front lines of the Ukraine war. The same can be said for the regional leaders the captured Russian agent targeted. Assassination is one of the only ways to take these sorts of people out. Don't underestimate the impact the loss of such key players can have. As the Kyiv Independent notes, Ukraine's assassinations of pro-war figures inside Russia are designed to demoralize Russia while punishing people it considers war criminals. You can likely say the same for Putin's attempts. The idea on both sides is to bring the war to regions that never expected to be hit. Perhaps that's less important to Russia, as Kharkiv was one of the first cities Putin targeted when he invaded, and he's shelled it constantly since. The same can be said for Dnipro. Still, assassination attempts carried out in these cities, successful or otherwise, sow the seeds of terror. They communicate to regular Ukrainian people that they can never be 100% sure that they're safe around citizens they consider their own. Ukraine's assassinations in Moscow deliver the same message to everyday Russians. And there's another element of these assassinations to consider. They're technically illegal. From a civilian standpoint, that may seem pretty obvious. If you were to pay somebody to kill somebody else, you would expect law enforcement to come banging on your door. However, the murky world of war is often different, with those involved in conflict often being able to justify killing people they perceive as enemies outside of the battlefield. Law professor at Notre Dame, Mary Ellen O'Connell, makes the key point. Assassination is always unlawful, she says, pointing to judgments made by the 1907 Hague Convention, the United Nations International Court of Justices, and the European Court of Human Rights. The 1949 Geneva Convention also says it is prohibited to kill, injure, or capture an adversary by resort of perfidy. That term means the feigning of civilian or non-combatant status, which is precisely what an assassin has to do to take out their target. So, Russia is breaking the law with its assassination attempts. And it's not just Ukrainian law, it's international law too. And Ukraine is doing the same thing, seemingly more successfully than Russia. It's catching Russia's assassins in sting operations while taking out some of Russia's key officials and propagandists. Which begs the question, is Ukraine justified in responding to Russia's assassination attempts in kind? Let us know your thoughts about the answer to that question in the comments. Also, share your opinions on Ukraine's sting operation and what it means for Putin's efforts to destabilize Ukraine from the inside. And remember to subscribe to The Military Show for more in-depth analysis of every facet of the Ukraine war. We're an independent source of news and information of military conflicts around the globe and greatly appreciate your support.